Peace, everyone. Welcome to another sex talk with Ayana the model, and today we will be featuring Marc MEALY. Marc MEALY is someone who really likes to speak about intimacy. He has a really great hands on intimacy, and he really wants to focus on that for tonight's discussion. So that is what we're going to be focused on. He's about to come on. Just waiting for it. Hey.
Peace, Ayana. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And thanks. How's it going? Good.
It's good. It's good. So, I was giving a brief introduction before you jumped on. Just saying that you would like to highlight intimacy in this conversation, even though we're going to follow the regular structure that we've been doing for the other sex talks that I've been hosting on my page. But just to give a little idea of, who you are and what you do, I would like you to introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. So I think the best way I would describe myself, I'm a black man, uh, the son of a woman who was in the Black Panther Party. So I grew up in around a lot of strong black women, very focused on the community, raised by a single parent. But I'm born in Brooklyn, raised in Harlem. Been living in between the DMV, New York, and Miami now for years. I actually work as an economist, focused on sort of international economic and trade issues. So that's kind of what I do professionally. But also, I'm kind of an investor, and I really like to invest in art. And that's actually one of the things that I think you and I have connected on
Mm-hmm.
consciously and unconsciously. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. So I'm going to jump right in and ask you the first question. What is your relationship to sex?
Okay, I would say for me, it's really a big part of what I think is like a holistic approach to a style of life, not necessarily like a lifestyle, where whether I was, a boy, high school, college, going into adulthood, for me, sex has always been a part of my life. Um, Not a sense of sort of defining me as a man, because I think all too often, um, boys and men get sort of these constructs of what manhood is
Mm-hmm.
in relation to sex. And I think I was very fortunate that, my mom as a single mother and the village that kind of raised me kind of countered that kind of socialization. So
Mm.
for me, sex a fundamental part of a holistic lifestyle, but at the same time, it's a part of my life. It does not define me as a black man.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. That's awesome. How would you say that your socialization differed in a way where you were able to understand sex as a holistic part of your lifestyle as opposed to something that um, should be mistreated like most people do?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, as I kind of said, I mean, I raised by a single mother, who was both my mother, a really close friend, and from a very early age, talking about sex, understanding about sex between a man and a woman, etc., were things that were very freely conversed. Were sort of part of just how the kind of basically the kind of black man she was trying to raise as a black woman. And as I mentioned, I think I had, role models, because even though my dad wasn't really in my life, I had uncles. And I think for me, I had uncles who, like, I guess, fit all the different kinds of categories, right? I had uncles who were, players. I had uncles who were like really like loved like their women, their wives, etc. Like that's what they just focused on. And then I even had some older uncles who I always remember one time, a couple of older uncles took a group of us, younger boys on a camping trip. And of course, we're talking about sex and da 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 da. And I never forget one day, one of my uncles, He said, hey, look, all y'all like just shut up for a second. Because all y'all talking about like, sex and getting girls and whatever. And don't none of y'all know the first thing about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And his real basic message was, as younger boys that will grow into becoming men, he was trying to tell us like sex is going to come, it's going to happen, it's going to be a part of your life, but it don't like define you in becoming men. And I think that's what he was just trying to plant that seed. Because, at that age, you may have that on your head 24/7, just thinking about sex and trying to get a girl, that kind of thing. So that was always very important. And then I think, last but not least, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Pisces man. For those who don't know, we share the same birthday, right?
Yes.
224.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had, I think, a good appreciation for the importance and equality of women and how that may have manifested itself in terms of like a sexual relationship with a woman. And I really acknowledge, as a man, I come from women, right? And I've been really fortunate in a sense to have experienced like women, whether I was, a younger person and an auntie, or when I became a man and I'm having relationships with women, to be able to experience and get to know women who have really tapped into like the true divine power of a woman and that feminine energy. And for whatever reason, when I came across women like that, that's always kind of like, I've gravitated. I'm like, whoa, like I acknowledge that energy, that power that woman just captures in being herself and being a woman, And because I've had a lot of women that I've known that don't really tap into that, don't really have that kind of connection to self in that regard. So I think that's also kind of influenced how I've sort of seen, or developed a sense of what sex is as a part of life.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that it's very interesting when people talk about how you are attracted to your parents or you are attracted to like the characteristics of parents or the energy that your parents come. And I think that no matter what relationship you have with your parents, you're still attracted to that energy. And I think that it's important to understand that your relationship is going to dictate how you interact with other people that you are attracted to. Because, for example, if you have a very strong mother, but your mother was abusive, you are still most likely going to be attracted to strong women, but you're probably going to have more misogyny. You're probably going to have more of an aversion to strong women. You're probably going to have some inherent, jealousy, like underneath the way that you treat women. So I think that it's very interesting not only that you're attracted to those characteristics of the woman that raised you, but also the relationship you have with her is an amazing reflection, if not the main reflection of how you treat people in your life, and then how you then integrate with sex as a straight man and what that looks like and what that feels like for you. So that's awesome.
You put that so well. I mean, you put it brilliantly.
Give thanks. Yeah, I'm always thinking about, I mean, of course, right now we talk a lot about sex, and it's one of the things that I am fascinated with. Just anything about sensuality, sexuality, like you mentioned, divine femininity, how you hone in on your power, how you express so much about who you are and what the real authentic pieces of yourself look like, and then how you navigate through the world by owning those authentic pieces. So I'm really, really connected to all of those things. And one of the things that also fascinate me are relationships. So I'm always thinking about, okay, well, how is your relationship with your parents? How is your relationship with siblings? How is your relationship with friends? Like, what does that look like? What connects people? What breaks people apart? How do people outgrow each other? I'm literally always being introspective about those things. So yeah, I think about them often.
Gotcha.
So we talked about sex, but I wanted to know, what is your experience with sensuality? And I know that your job is in economics and international economics, so I don't know how much it'll integrate into that, but we're gonna go ahead and discuss how, if any, does this energy kind of show up in like workspaces. But first and foremost, what is your experience with sensuality, and how has that been integrated into your life in your sexual journey?
Sure, sure. So I think for me, when I think of sensuality, I really, the sensuality, that first part of that word, the senses, right? Just kind of I've always kind of come to my mind. And in my, sexual journey, um, really over time, really appreciating like the infinite power in those senses. If
Mm.
you really tap into them, sight, sound, touch, taste, um, you know, all those things. If you really tapped into them, and that's why I think, again, sometimes um, those women who I've encountered that have really tapped into the power of being a woman, right? They're in tune with those things. That's one thing for sure.
Mm.
But then in learning from such women, as I've been able to benefit from, women who have taught me a lot about a woman's body, you
Mm.
know, understanding, and we'll get into this in terms of intimacy, but appreciating that sometimes if you're with a woman and if she's stimulated in a positive kind of way, it's like if you're listening, you can hear it in her breath. You can if you're open to the information that the body might be providing in terms of the touch, right? Touching here generate a certain kind of vibration or reaction, touching there generate a certain, but you got to be like listening for it, right? You got to be
Mm.
not in yourself, right? You've got to be, I'm trying to really connect. And these senses, the sensuality, I think are great ways to really kind of, for me, to kind of really connect and almost like the building blocks for, you know, what could come in terms of a sexual experience. But that's so that list. So I think that's for me because yeah, it's not so much in my work per se.
Mm-hmm.
Has sensuality been something that I've been able to sort of realize that space for? But I would say this. Um, as I mentioned before, besides like my job and, my entrepreneur dimension and, investing in artists, I mean, I think in that last piece though, creative artists whose art taps into, forms of, sensuality or like intimacy, it catches my eye, right?
Mm.
So it grabs my attention. I kind of move towards it. And, it helps me to potentially decide like what I want to buy, what I want to invest in terms of like a piece of art, that I think like, because I think, art that you want to bring into your home should somehow be like a reflection of the vibration that who you really are, because it's in your home. It's gonna be a back and forth, so to speak. And I would always want to have like, art that for me generates that kind of vibration. I see it in that piece of art, which is probably why again, I vibrated towards it. I want to bring it into my home. I want to support the artist who creates that because I think that's valuable, not even just for myself, but for community. So those are the kinds of independent creative artists that I like to support in that regard.
Yeah. Um, I think that, well, we spoke ahead of time and you mentioned community again, and I think it's really important that this work kind of inherently creates community. And a lot of people, because there are so many spaces that are lacking where you can get knowledge or understand more about
No
sensuality
doubt.
or connect with someone who can openly express it or watch something that is not completely filled with all the negative instances that former pornography has had, and really hone in by tapping into people whose entire life and creative work is to push forth this type of energy.
Mhm.
How do you feel like this type of work is creating community? I know I just said a couple of things of how it works, but
Mhm.
how do you personally feel like it is, and what's your view on how important that is?
Mhm. No, I think, and yeah, again, we've touched on this a little bit. I have always found that those kind of like independent creative artists who not only at their truest self about the art, about what they want to create, and that's fundamental. But they've also got kind of, I think, an awareness or like a sense of the value that the art can contribute to the culture
Mm.
and how valuable culture is to any community, to every community.
Mhm.
We know that from our own history, as people that whose ancestors were once enslaved, we know that part of that process was really to try to take away the culture, because we know how valuable that is to this freedom of the spirit, so to speak. So artists who make that connection, I just think are just doing not only, beautiful, great art, like, your documentary film is just dope art, but then it also has an impact that's beyond even the art in terms of like other people, as you said, maybe are looking for spaces, maybe are looking for information, maybe with value in exchange with someone they would feel comfortable, like a sense of trust, maybe to be more of their true selves, right? I mean, that's valuable, particularly in this day and age. We know about, mental health struggles and stuff like that. A lot of that, I think, is people who probably really struggled just being their true selves, yet alone then trying to maybe seek support and help from others. I
Mm.
always say, you gotta have to be connected to someone or find a connection to someone. It's partially a reflection of how connected you are to yourself.
Mhm.
If you're not tapped into yourself, it's going to be real hard to get a deep, intimate connection with anyone else. I really believe that. Um, so yeah, so that's why I think there is a great value to creative artists who about the work, about the art, et cetera, but also realize it's also linked to the culture and can have even a broader impact. And I think that's very valuable for Black people. Very, very valuable.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that that's definitely right. I think it also shows how important it is for things like this, and I'm going to promote right now, but my event coming up on May 26th entitled Sacred Screening and Sex Talk is kind of like a rendition of the way these lives have been going, but it's going to be with Femme Duzio, who is a sensuality advocate and activist and educator. Um, Her entire brand is about showcasing how you fit into your own body, how you sit in your own body, and how
Mhm.
comfortable you're supposed to be in that space. And I'm really excited that she's going to be one of the guest speakers so that she can go ahead and showcase her artistry with everyone who's going to be a part of the event. But I'm going to be showcasing my film, Sacred Energy and Sex Talk. Well, I'm going to be showcasing my film, Sacred Energy Exchange. Sacred Energy and Sex Talk was actually the first premiere that I did in my film in Miami, which was amazing. So now I'm bringing that series kind of online and showcasing Sacred Energy Exchange, a personal story on polyandry, kink, and masturbation. And I think that when you mentioned, you can't even connect with someone unless you have connected with yourself, this is what this space is doing. This space is showing how much you may have ignored about yourself, how much you may have failed to tap into different parts of yourself because maybe you thought it was disgusting or dirty or shameful or something that's supposed to be happening behind closed doors or something that's supposed to be private. And so bringing it on a public platform, I think, is pertinent for you to reflect to see, okay, these are all the people who are also here with me, so we all have the same mindset. Now I can find more people who are like-minded so that I can be into a community that expresses this stuff. And the way I see sexuality is it's much more than just something that happens. I think in the way that you describe it, as it not being like a lifestyle but being like a style of life, it is one of the most important things that you need to be free of and kind of have a liberated energy around, just because of how integrated it is. I always mention like the stereotypes of people, like, oh, you know, he has that big old F-150 truck because he probably has a small penis, or oh, she's at work and she's the boss, and the reason why she screams and yells at everyone and the reason why she's trying to fire us is because she doesn't get any sex at home. It's always like when we talk about personality and characteristics, sometimes we always bring it back to sex, but some people also forget that those little stringents of what's connecting us to our sexual selves is what's going to show in our social lives, is what's going to show in our professional lives. So it's going to show up because it's a huge part of who we are. And I think that's one of the reasons why I make it such an important topic to talk about almost at all times, especially when it's relevant, especially when it can be a space to educate and to showcase it in art, or showcase it in a ways that you can move deeply within yourself to find out more about who you are.
No doubt, no doubt. And probably, you know, again, you're an artist. I would even almost imagine that when you make those kind of connections between, like I said, the conscious dimensions of this kind of, you know, important work to art, you know, we all know the power of art to really, you know, speak to the heart, speak to spirit, those kinds of things. In some ways, you know, you may be connecting people to this information, to getting closer to themselves via the art, and not even realizing that it's the art that's helping the connection on, you maybe even ahead of the information, you know, or the community. Because you just never know, right, in communication, what really reaches that person to the point where they really receive the information that you're trying to share. Because you're clear, Yana, on what you're trying to share. You're very clear on that. But you and I know some, you know, communication is a two-way street, and sometimes maybe someone struggles to really receive what you're trying to share. But for someone who appreciates art, that might be like the bull's arrow, you know?
Yeah.
You know, someone who appreciates dance, that might be like their bullseye. Like that's why they really, really understand what you're trying to communicate, because for them, that art is like their mode of communication.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right. I have heard a lot of messages over the past several years that I've been modeling, especially when I relocated back home to Miami. And the way people receive me is in all those different ways. You know, it's non-verbally. It's whatever they're watching, whatever they're seeing, me deciding to do nude modeling, or me deciding to be a body painting muse, or me deciding to showcase dance in burlesque, like all these different aspects of sensuality and sexuality, and honing in on the body and feeling very comfortable in the skin that you are in. Definitely helps people break out of their shell and break out of the mold that they were probably taught, or what they put on themselves because of their experiences and their and the different things that people have told them.
Yeah,
So yeah, I agree.
And when you think about, like, you know, when I think about like how art moves me, and I kind of move to art that, like, you know, if I'm at a, you know, a spot where the music is bumping, or, you know, listening to a beautiful vocalist or whatever, it almost gets kind of, it can get intimate, right? It can become a feeling of intimacy. And, you know, I mean, I always say, when I think about, like, you know, how do I, like, you know, think about intimacy, or, you know, define intimacy, I think there's like levels to this shit in terms of stuff like that.
Yeah, let's get into that. How do you
But let me just share one thing. Like, just for this art here, right? When I saw that art, it generated so much intimacy, like the intimacy captured between you and Jade comes out in that art. And I also thought about, and I even spoke to Jade about this, I was like, you know what? I know a woman probably was the shooter.
Yes.
And the reason why I said, and which it was, and the reason why I said that was because the intimacy that I received was, again, tapped into, again, that real divine power of woman, sisterhood, femininity. And I almost said to myself, if there was some male energy there, even just like as a cool photographer, I don't know if it would have been quite the same. You know, it could have been equally beautiful, but it might have just been different. But
Yeah.
I just saw all of that in that one. Like to me, that's such a beautiful, artistic capture of what I see as intimacy. You know, how I see intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's jump into it. Let's chop it up.
Yeah, I think that when I think about intimacy, I think the first time that I've been discussing intimacy for a while because I tell people all the time that I think that there are levels to relationships.
Mhm.
And once you get into a relationship that is deep enough for you to feel close to somebody, I say that it's intimate.
Okay.
And then I think the next step from intimacy is romantic. And then I think the final step from a romantic relationship is sexual.
Okay.
So I always describe myself as a polyromantic person because I'm romantic with a lot of different people.
Okay.
Although I may not be polysexual because I might not have a lot of sexual relations with a lot of people who I'm romantic with. And intimacy to me has always felt just close, you know. So piggybacking off of the way that you showcase, you know, the photo that you purchased of us and how close we were, I feel like that is the perfect materialized visual of what I feel when I do have a friendship and do have a relationship with someone that's not surface level, that's not just an associate, that's not just someone who I saw in passing, but someone who I really connected with. And I think that a lot of my relationships reflect that. I think that many times when people experience me, they experience intimacy. And I think that's why a lot of people do feel very connected to me. Even if we weren't even friends for 5 years, even if we saw each other maximum 3 times, I'm an in-depth person. So I want to talk to you about something that is showcasing your vulnerability. And
Yeah.
that to me is what brings me close to people. And I
Mm.
think that it also, because I also talk to people about the idea of being close to someone doesn't have to come from pain. And I was thinking about that often because I remember someone a while ago told me that like my successes are not relatable. And it made me, this was like years ago, but it
Okay.
stuck with me until like now. So it made me, and it was an older black man too. So I was just like, okay. So it made me think that I had to find something hard so that other people can understand that I go through struggles too. And I really hate that mindset because it makes you feel like if you're not going through something terrible, then you don't have access to progression and you don't deserve to be better, which I don't agree with.
Gotcha.
But regardless of something hard or something negative, something that is exposing who you are, regardless of what that is, that could definitely be positive, is what makes you feel closer to people. And I think that that space is what I exist in at all times. And if I'm not existing in that space, then I'm most likely not connecting to you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you in the sense that to me, intimacy is about that connection. It's definitely with connection with the self, and then being able to, build that kind of, trust, uh, respect, maybe sense of friendship. And I like the point you said, vulnerability. Because you not know if you're making choices or you're vibing with folks over and you navigate, your own ego or insecurity or a fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually those things are going to block you from, like I said, being able to be vulnerable with someone or even probably with yourself. You're probably faking yourself out as much as you possibly can just to maybe for your own mental. So to your point about being vulnerable, I oftentimes said that that vulnerability, intimacy is very much linked to, like, I would say, feelings of actual love in the sense, because I believe there is a degree of risk, right? You take a risk, like you're willing to put your heart, out there. You're going to be vulnerable, right? but that's the only way to really get to, intimacy, I think, get to love, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it manifests that way, sometimes it doesn't, right? And that's life. But when I really think about it, if I never risked like my heart, to or tried to really be vulnerable so I could develop a kind of an intimacy with someone, probably never really felt that feeling of love. At least for me, in my experiences, and I've been, I think I've been very fortunate to have had some really good, long-term, very loving relationships that had levels of intimacy, and sexual intimacy, were included, particularly because they were like long-term. And one time, you be together for a little while, and it's just cool, fun, nice thing. But if you're with someone for some years, that's got to evolve, But you still want the passion, you still want the closeness, the connection. For me, I still want the fun. For me, sex, I always had a construct of sex being fun.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, when you're having fun, right? You're very open. You feel safe to really just be your true self, right? To me, that's when I've had the most fun. you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm with you in terms of, like I said, that connection really being what intimacy kind of really gets to, starting with yourself and then building with whoever that other person is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's interesting that you said in order to tap into love, you have to be vulnerable. I never thought about that, but it's a brilliant expression. I really like it. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's something that I've spoken about recently. I went back to my alma mater, Mount Holyoke College, in March, and I spoke at the Trailblazers of Color Leadership Conference that they have every year. And I did my lecture on Friendships 101, how to create and maintain healthy connections. And one of the things that I honed in on is the fact that you can't have ego and grow a relationship. Like, it's mutually exclusive. So I feel like that idea it goes hand in hand with the idea of you being open is what's going to lead you to love. If you're not open, you're not going to be led to love. You're going to be led to pride. You're going to be led to arguments. You're going to be led to bumping heads with somebody, but you're not going to be led to love. And there is a level of discernment, of course, that you should have with someone who you are opening up to. So a lot of people, they hear, be open, and they're like, I don't want to get my heart broke. If you are really, really, really concerned about being really crazily hurt, you either don't know enough about yourself or you don't trust yourself as much as you should. And that is a lot of self-work that you need to do, because you shouldn't be super afraid of people around you if you have the amazing ability to sift through the people who are not for you and to connect with people who are. There should be nothing scary about that. You should be like, yeah, I'm cool. I connect with him and her. I don't connect with them. I just don't. Like, that's how I feel. I don't go through life fearing heartbreak or fearing a friendship breakup or fearing that something's going to happen between me and whoever it is that I'm connected to, because I'm open to everyone, connected to all things, attached to nothing. So there's a level of acceptance of it not going the way I'm trying to plan. So assumption is a big part of that. And I think that really reflects back on sex in a great way, because a lot of people do have this idea of what it looks like. So when you mention you having fun is one of the best ways that you are able to be open, that's brilliant, because a lot of people take some of this stuff too seriously. And I think that it makes it hard for them to be open, because they're like, well, we're supposed to like do this and then that, and then they have this idea of how it's supposed to feel or what it's supposed to look like, and there's mishaps, there's mistakes, people bump their heads with their partner. Okay, you were gonna bite somebody, you bit them too hard. I mean, things happen. It doesn't look the way that it might not look the way that you imagine it in your head, and that's okay. And I feel like that detachment from that idea and that acceptance to experience whatever it is that comes is a perfect structure to apply to how you engage in relationships, how you engage with other people who you connect with, in order for you to, like you said, be open, in order for you to to receive love. Without that ability to relax your ego, relax your pride, relax the that consciousness in your head that's telling you that it's supposed to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way, you're not going to be open enough to connect with somebody else.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I mean, two things you made me think of as you shared with me. Like I know, like you said, you may have these senses of like what you think is supposed to be like in the sexually, you in the heat of the moment, everything. And I can share with you that I've had two very intimate experiences with in my life with two different women where everything was like what you quote unquote might envision it to be in terms of a sexual experience. And literally during, right before, middle of it, it changed. Both is like, you know what? Like, stop, right? Just chill. And that was actually okay. Because one, of course I stopped, right? Hey, because, I always knew from an early age, a woman can say no before, during, after, and that's what you stop, period. Mm-hmm. Right? But then the level of intimacy that emerged, like both of those immediate moments afterward, were still like very real. Like, what's going on with you emotionally where, you wanted to stop? What happened to you mentally that made you sort of change your mind about a decision that you're totally cool with it a minute ago, but something happened. Like, because that's going to probably be revealing some vulnerabilities, maybe some traumas, et cetera, et cetera. And again, that's real and that's okay. And I didn't walk away feeling like, well, damn, that didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to turn out, right? Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be, some really, 2-hour, long making love session, and it didn't turn out that way. But it was still very intimate. That still was a level of a connection there with both of them. So I totally agree with you. You being open, sense of fun, again, trust, comfort. I mean, we talk about levels. I mean, I think levels of intimacy, a sexual relationship, at some of the highest levels is like, do you really feel like you can share fantasies? Do you really feel comfortable in, wanting to do different experiences? Like, and not feeling like in raising it, again, how you raise it may be important in terms of the kind of relationship that you have. But in other words, if you're being honest and you are manifesting, again, a true self, I want to experience, multiple partners, or I want to try this with someone that you're close to. If you're willing to put that on the table, honestly, and then willing to honestly receive however this intimate person responds back to you, that can be a very deep form of intimacy right there, because you were vulnerable and revealed, and that person may have said, you know what, sure, or I got a similar, fantasy or whatever. You all have now taken the intimacy to a different level, or maybe you discovered a boundary.
Yeah.
Between one person and the other. And that, again, that can also be very intimate, because now you feel like, you know what, now I know my partner maybe at a little bit of a deeper level, right? And that's a positive thing, at least where I'm coming from, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. There is definitely a level of discussion that you have with someone about sex that is very liberating, pertinent, just allowing you to connect with them because you guys are talking about some things that you never usually do. And it doesn't take away from those moments that you don't have to talk about because they flow so nicely,
Sure.
is also beautiful. And I've experienced both, but it's just nice. It's just nice for you to be able to have a conversation about things, like you said, to open up a space of intimacy in conversation. And when you mention those experiences that you had with those women where it went away from the idea you had, or maybe it just, the expectation that you initially had didn't stay with you, but we know we all have an idea of what things are going to look like. It's just being mindful enough and conscious enough to not hold on to that idea, because sometimes you go to a party and you know a lot of people are going to go to that party. So you have an expectation of this party being lit. It's not a problem that you have an expectation. But if you get to the party and it's not as many people as you thought it was, the idea here is to not hold on to that former expectation. So
Yeah.
once
Be
those
open. Yeah, be open to what the
change.
reality is. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's something that I mentioned with the other women that I had the sex talks with, because I think when I was speaking to Kamisha in particular, we were talking about just enjoying the experience. I think we just honed in on like, it's about the experience.
Yeah.
And the difference between sensuality and sexuality is honing in on the energies of the senses, like you mentioned, without the expectation of orgasming or without the expectation of a climax. Like, the actual experience of the senses is what it's all about. You know, that is the experience, that where it can begin and end, that can be enough. And when you release the idea of what things should look like, you realize that there are things that are enough that don't have to end in penetration, that don't have to begin here, don't have to look like this or to look like that. And it helps you again to have a much more intimate relationship with someone, and a much more intimate experience, because now you two are not putting pressure on one another,
Yeah.
and pressure a lot of times happens on both sides, you know.
No doubt. No doubt. I was thinking as you were talking also about um, those kind of moments where when you really are open to the reality, and again, not and being open, vulnerable, not judgmental to what could be experienced. You never know where that might take you both in terms of just at that moment, but also in terms of the evolution of a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
in that regard. Because it's funny. I think of sometimes in one of my longest relationships, some of the kinds of things that like to me were very intimate, and probably not everybody necessarily would think those would be intimate things for them, but that's cool because this was my reality and what I saw of intimacy. So yeah, I think about like, being in the room, with the mother of my child when she gave birth, to our child.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, that was very intimate in that regard. Um, I can even think about, one time in a really great loving relationship, that thing about fun and playing games and stuff like that. I mean, I like to give, I like to receive too, but I'm a giver. And I used to always love, like, it was like something I would look forward to when, we could just have some time just to be really relaxed and, go into some like, some nice personal grooming. And at the same time, weave in, you know, different types of foreplay and just touching and massage, like all sort of part of, like you said, just stimulating the senses, the
Mm-hmm.
experience, and just would be like, I can look back on it last, man, we were like so close
Mm-hmm.
sexually that it just opened up so many other types of experiences. Because, and to me, stuff like that just demonstrated there again, level of comfort, a
Yeah.
level of trust. All those things were present, and therefore we both could really be closer to our true selves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an experience, not just have the vision of what we think something should look like.
Right.
Experience. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. Let's see what else I got.
Hmm.
um I think the last question that I have for you, I know we flowed back and forth, was when did the idea of intimacy become prevalent for you? Because I know that um, these things are all journeys. Sexuality is a journey, our relationships to ourselves and other people in whatever way that is a journey. So when among your journey did you kind of like hone in on, okay, like this is why, this is what's really important, or this is something that I really want to integrate into any relationship that I have, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. When did that start for you?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think for me, high school, I'm running around active doing, but like going like into college
Mm.
and those years, when I first probably experienced like just more intimate and more serious, more longer term kinds of relationships. Again, oftentimes, with maybe women who are a little bit older than I was,
Mm.
different level of maturity. Very, very much again for me as someone like learned a lot again about women and being in relationships with women, those experiences. But it's funny because even more recently, I had an experience where during this a period of really being celibate, like not dating, not being a single man, just being flowing, and now being in a relationship, I had a chance to kind of reflect on the fact that, the good chunk of my like adult life, right, has been, you know, in connection with others.
Hmm.
And I realized that like, wow, you haven't really spent as much time as maybe as you would be very benefit from, right? Of just not being connected, like not being intimate with anyone, and make sure you're really getting more in tune with who you are today, who you are after many of these lessons and many of these experiences, many of these journeys. And I think it was sort of that, some of that kind of reflection, like, doing some of the work on self, as you touched on earlier, right? A lot of self work in this journey. Um, that's when the importance of like intimacy in a relationship, I think, was further strengthened, because as the kind of person that I am today, as the kind of Black man I'm in today, sexual relationship without some deeper intimacy, I already know. I already know where it's not going and how it's going to quote unquote play out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool, but I just know like that's not really what I'm going to value. Like, because that's what that is. And yet at this point in my journey, um, the intimacy is really what I value.
Mm-hmm.
The intimacy is really what gives me more fulfillment in that regard at this, and much more within myself at this part of my journey than what I was, coming through college, coming out of school, starting to make a little money, you running around, you spending money, you partying, all those kind of things, all the best experiences I could ever imagine having. But that was then. That was that part of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, I'm much more now. And so that's where, again, I think that value of intimacy is even more fundamental. The closeness is what I really would find like stimulating in being connected with someone, versus like a superficial connection or just like a physical connection that is just what that is, which again, that's cool, but that's probably not what I know is going to feed my spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and make me want to be that giver that I know is part of my true nature. Probably not going to bring that out of me if it's just like on that level, because I wanted to be I'd like to be at a higher level. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's core. Like you cannot be who you fully are if you're not in an intimate space. And
Mm,
so there is a level of understanding you have to have with the other person when you are integrating in that level of intimacy. And there's going to be a level of, performance, I think, if you're not.
right.
It's going to be whatever it is that you think you should look like or whatever ideas you're trying to portray, but nothing as real. So it just comes off as like acting, really.
And for those who maybe are good at that, as an art, you know, maybe they can be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creative in some ways, but I'm not a very good actor.
Yeah, I'm a great actress, but anybody trying to act for that, no, it's wrong use of the skills. Okay.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, it's about getting to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So we have about 10 minutes left. We could definitely keep on flowing. I want to encourage people to send questions, either comment questions or send them in a question box, which is the question mark at the bottom of your screen. If you do have any questions, because we do have some time for that. Um, but let me see. What
And
other?
questions can be for you too, right?
Say it again.
Questions can be for you too as well. Maybe some folks might want to ask you a question.
True. If you do have questions for me, you can ask questions for us at large, general questions about sensuality, maybe specifically questions about intimacy, because that's definitely something that Marc loves to talk about as well. So either one. will work. But yes, if there are none, we're gonna head out soon.
Okay.
I think a final question would probably be, hmm, has there been, I mean, every time I ask people about like their journey, a lot of times we talk about, the past, but what is a reflection of, I guess, intimacy and sensuality, sexuality in your life right now, presently? And I guess, how do you keep those things fresh and alive in your life if it's not a moment of like celibacy right now, for example?
Right. No, I think it's funny. The way you phrase that question reminds me of just a couple of conversations that you and I have had, like at different points, of just us meeting each other and vibing. So I remember you've been a strong proponent of, we were vibing on something, and you said, right, like, yo, Marc, when it comes to like, relationships and developing, friendships and vibes with folks, you said like, trust the process. Like, you're like, really, like, Marc, I'm telling you, trust the process. Like, if you really are being true to yourself, and if you're trying to build connections with people, and from a real positive way, there's no bullshit, there's no game, no schemes, no nothing and stuff like that. Just being real, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll vibe and connect with those who you meant to vibe and connect with.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to like try or not be your true self to establish those connections. And I think that's I was like, I reflected on this observation, and reaffirmed it, because at the end of the day, the real connections that you might make with someone, I would say the best ones, right,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be those where from the very beginning you really were being your true self. From the very jump, the
Yes.
first connect, the first vibe, right, was just you really being real, you really being true, you being honest, you being open,
Mm-hmm.
not afraid, not caught up with ego, those are in the moment, those kind of things, right? And so I believe in that. And I try to create in my day to day, create beautiful moments,
Mm-hmm.
live for experiences. As one of our mutual friends know, all about creating more memories. Like, but by doing shit that is just like dope shit, fun shit or whatever, and therefore it's going to be like a memory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, those are things that you can do on a daily,
Mm-hmm.
even in terms of your current vibe. And the other thing I would say to you that I always really stuck with me, that you said, I'm sorry, you said with me, that really stuck with me was, um, I'm trying to think the context of the conversation. Something like this, we were saying how, artists like yourselves, you open, to people, particularly like when you're sharing your art and you're creative and stuff like that. And it's so easy, right, for people that maybe, you interact with, you meet, they vibe with you, whatever, that their first connection with you or attempt to connect you with you really might not be based on your true self, but it's based upon their projection of their mental onto you, right? Like how they see you, as opposed to who you may or may not truly be, right?
Yeah.
And so you had a good point where you say, yes, yeah, Marc, the more true you are to yourself, the less you allow someone else to like project their mind of you onto you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're navigating individuals, peoples, and spaces like that, that's probably a pretty good thing. That you're in the world and energies and vibrations and people are coming at you and you're interacting with them, but from your true self, right? Your true self, which probably then allows you, like you said, oh, you're over there. You might be able to connect with me. That might explore something. Nah, that's over there, because you're not being other than yourself
Mm-hmm.
in the world, right? And I always thought that was a very, very powerful observation. Yeah, that's why you're so dope in terms of what you do as an artist, as a creative, and as a community builder. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Yes, give thanks. Yeah, I forgot that I said oh thanks to you. But the latter one that you just mentioned, I've just expressed that to multiple people, and I
Okay.
think yeah, it's so important. I feel like it's like one of those tidbits that, make a lot of sense and we probably are doing it if we are acting our true selves. But like when we know that phrase and we can download and digest it, we're like, okay, there is something like very real and tangible about like this experience when we are just being who we are.
Right.
Because yeah, I think someone was saying that they saw a meme that said, no one on earth ever knows you um, the way that you know yourself or sees you the way you see yourself. Like no one ever, just because it's physically impossible, or mentally incapable of creating this idea because they're not in your head, they're not in your mind, they don't know your thoughts. And even though that can be a little bit daunting, because one of my friends, when she mentioned it, she was like, yeah, it's like kind of scary. I'm like, I mean, not really. There can be enough of yourself that you're, like I said before, showcasing where regardless of their version of you, it's going to be the closest version that they can create, that connects to who you are. So we have we have more than one question. Oh, yes. Okay, so the first person to ask the question was Bree. She said, what do you think about maintaining friendships with ex-lovers once you begin a new relationship, especially if you still share genuine friendships with those exes?
Yeah, that's real. As a real world experience, I can speak from my own journey. Um, I'm cool and have a great, healthy relationship with my child's mother, and would have to work with any future woman in my life to understand the nature of that relationship is about the parenting, not about sexual relationship and those kinds of things, right? But yeah, takes a level of trust, right? Being a lot of honesty, probably to navigate those kinds of spaces, and depending upon the nature of how you and the ex, you know, went different ways could also affect how well you may have to either have a level of connection or maybe no connection, when you're moving forward with someone else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I love this question because I talk about this often with my friends, and even when it comes to, so I think that it's super cultural, right? And I think that within our culture, of course, there are different people who have different modes and methods to how they deal with their relationships. And I love the people who are mature enough to maintain those healthy connections, even if there was something happening in the past. I was talking to someone who, I think one of my German friends or one of my French friends that was talking about how, you go to their wedding and it's
Okay.
like five ex-boyfriends that they used to have, but they're such good friends with them, people who they used to have sex with, people you did this with. But now they're all friends and they built a community based on genuine connection. And it doesn't even matter what their relationship was. I think
Right.
there's such a narrative of having an ain't shit ass ex in America specifically. And I mean, my most recent relationship was the only experience like that. Like every single other relationship I've ever had in my lifetime has been with people who I can call up today, text today, hang out with today, go visit today. So for me, I've always had friendships that were past relationships or exes for all intents and purposes, that reflected great friendships. People who I've kissed and made out with who are now some of my closest homeboys. It's just, for me, I've always valued the level of connection over relationship dynamic. And I feel like that idea in my head, because it's something that I push forward with so often, is what allows me to really understand that things change and that's fine. But if there is something close and intimate and supportive and positive and progressive, then why would I cut it off just because of an insecurity someone else might have? I think that there is definitely an understanding of who can hear certain things. Like, My ex, for example, I didn't tell him about the things I did with other people because I know that it would probably fester in his insecurities. But
Yeah.
I was definitely around him, hanging out, with my new partner, and they didn't treat me any differently that I had a partner around them, because that is just a level of friendship, that's a level of understanding, that's a level of clarity that I had with them. So for me, I personally love when people are mature enough to not do anything sneaky or weird or try to work on a relationship behind your partner's back, but really and truly like enjoy whoever it is that you're with, and
Right.
really enjoy the friendship you have with that ex-partner. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Maturity, I think, is the key point. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Chance said, is there anything you'd like to see in society change in terms of sexuality? He asked 3 questions. That was the first one. Good question.
Oh, in terms of sexuality, um, probably reference to my own community. I think we as Black people in this country um, need to struggle on some things. In terms of how we may perceive or see, certain members of our community based upon their sexuality. Um, and I know that, it's a discussion within our community, et cetera, et cetera. But I just know when I just think about it, how I was raised, and this is probably more of a political kind of consciousness.
Mm.
Uh, as a Black person in capitalist America, sexuality, sexual expression, in terms of power dynamics and relationships between labor and capital and those kinds of things, don't mean a whole lot. Really don't mean a whole lot. So therefore, if we're talking about community, and really being together, that's a thorough contradiction if we're not prepared, to welcome our brothers and sisters of any sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
We, and I get, maybe religion people, maybe different, whatever people have that feeling where it's a struggle for them. That's the struggle. But from my point of view, that is a struggle. That is a struggle. That is something that needs to evolve and change.
Yeah.
How, when, where, yeah, it may vary from those of us in different parts of our community, but it's got to evolve and change. Like, this thing up in Buffalo, come on now. Come on now. You think whether a Black person in that store had any quote unquote difference in sexual orientation mattered at all? Come on. Come on. Nah, we just Black people, period, in their eyes, right? So yeah, that's probably the only thing I would say. I wish that's what I would care about, something that should be different. Again, the work that artists, other folks in the communities to at least again create these spaces. That's why there's a level of there's a revolutionary dimension to that, because you never know who someone else in a different community maybe changes their thinking, evolves their own mind, a little bit. So
Yeah, for me, I just think that openness, and I think that that also just piggybacks off of what you said, just being more open to something that you don't know, being more open to something that looks differently than what you've heard, being more open to something that, sounds odd or sounds weird, because it's in that openness that you're going to allow yourself to be more accepting, because openness begets acceptance. Like you're not, it's not, they're not mutually exclusive. They include one another. And that ability to be more accepting creates more community. So
okay.
I think that it just reflects back to how much of yourself you're allowing to be vulnerable, and to give yourself space to give yourself experiences. That way, when someone else is experiencing something that looks a little different or seems a little weird, it's not reflecting, something within you that makes you feel odd because you never tried it, or because you never gave your space to try it, or because you were never given the space to try it. So I think that that's probably one of the main things that I would want for us.
And like you said, and those kind of things can influence people's actions, like how they actually act towards one another. So you spot on there, because if you're coming out of fear, ignorance, scare, whatever, yeah, your reaction, your action, the choice of action you take could be on some total other bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
versus like, okay, that's different. Cool.
Right.
Oh, that's something I never thought about. Cool. You know, that's not going to dictate the nature of my action towards you,
Mm-hmm.
particularly within our community.
Yeah. Another question is there anything you like to, oh wait. If your sexuality is a book, what is this current chapter of it titled and why?
Mm, that's a good
Chance is also a Pisces. I feel like this is why he's on point.
question. No doubt, no doubt. Age of Aquarius? No, no. Um, I would say, I would say it's like, well, it's interesting because I think a lot about for my work and what I do of trying to understand maybe ways how things are like evolving or changing, like really being able to tease out what makes this like a moment of things that are maybe influencing like the nature of change, right? So that's a professional thing that I kind of do.
Hmm.
And I would say in terms of where I am right now, I guess in my journey, the book um, is really thinking about like, what's coming next
Hmm.
from where I am now to, a couple of years from now, 5 years from now, and stuff like that. And so, it's also about, I'm thinking about, where I'm going to be moving to, living and stuff like that. Um, Other kinds of things that I know are kind of on the horizon. How I want to evolve, kind of like my work-life balance between the 9 to 5, the business, and other kinds of things. How all those things are evolving, and they're supposed to. I want them to change over time because I think that's life. Life changes over time.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So yeah, it's like a chapter like what's coming next, or like looking to next. I think would be the chapter.
Hmm.
I'm looking to next. Yeah.
I would say that if if sexuality was a book and it was mine, then the chapter that I would be in right now would be exploration,
Exploration.
because I think that there's so much of chance that what's coming next is very punny given the context. Hilarious. Um,
I didn't even think about that.
right. Mine will be exploration because I feel like I'm doing a lot of exploring right now. And even though there is a ton that I know and a ton that I have knowledge about that I think that is relevant and valuable to teach, there's so much that I haven't explored. And that's the thing about sexuality and sensuality, is that you can never ever stop exploring. Like you can do this for 100 years and still have so much things to explore, like things that you haven't tried before, things that you want to work on, things that you want to get better with, things that you want to master. So with me, it's really exploring all the things that I know for sure about myself, and because I know so much about me and I feel like I have me down pack, I am really open to exploring that with someone on a consistent basis in order to show me more of me with someone else.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that will be my chapter
I,
exploration.
I feel that because I guess coming next year, the one thing that I'm fantasizing about that I want to experience at a real deeper level, in terms of a sexual relationship and connection, um, is a dimension of sort of a spiritual piece to it. Because I think it's something that
Yeah.
I've valued and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't experienced it to at a level
Mm-hmm.
that I want to. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something which I'm very conscious of. Um, you know, that would be a source of an intimate connection, trying to building an intimate connection with someone,
Mm-hmm.
that involve that that piece of the spirit and being intimate and being sexual.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah,
So do I actually. I'm like really, really into that. I have spoken a lot about it in different aspects. Like, I had been hosting a women's circle for the past couple years entitled
sure,
Circles at Sunset. and we speak a lot about sex magic and about like vaginal health and all that. And I think that that just goes into whatever it looks like for you to manifest sexually. And a lot of times you think about it with a partner, it can definitely for sure happen alone.
Mhm.
But it's very powerful when you have two people on that tip with each other. You know, it's like it's a step up from intimacy, and it goes
Mhm.
into just like a metaphysical plane, which is something I'm really interested in too. Another question is, how do you navigate sexually with partners that are on different sexual interests?
Hmm. You know, my journey, my experience for those partners where there was that level of sort of intimate connection, um, I've tended to be very open. Um, you know, again, a level of if I could be, if I'm vulnerable with you in, you know, in this way and that way and that way, and me being a giver, I think in terms of my nature, and if my partner, you know, again, being their true self, honestly sort of expresses a, you know, a fantasy, a desire, maybe a difference, that kind of thing. I got to honor that, you know,
Mm,
got to honor that first and foremost with them, because I think that's part of, you know, me showing again that level of acknowledgement. Um, and then depending upon, you know, how I would really be my true self, to be open and honest about, you know, is that something I can experience with you? Is that something I can, you know, would be how we share? That's something that I don't feel the same desire or interest, but I'd be cool if you went ahead, you know, again, depending upon the nature of our thing. That's probably how I would have tried to handle those scenarios. Because yeah, I've had experiences where it's like, you know, someone I was in an intimate relationship was like, you know, Mark, I've always had a fantasy for like, you know, a threesome or foursome, and you know I could have felt a certain kind of way. Oh, so what? You know, like our thing
enough.
isn't good enough or whatever. I was like, nah, right? So in that instance, I was like, but you know what? I think our connection is strong and solid like that. I'm open, you know, and so therefore we were able to together, you know, have that experience, and certainly deepen the level of intimacy. Didn't negatively, you know, impact the nature of our relationship and how we were connected and stuff like that. So yeah, not being afraid, not letting ego come in, you know, all those kind of, you know, all that kind of other bullshit, right? That could come in at that moment, insecurities, right? But like, no, we were that connected, you know, and open to share each other and wanted to be giver, really wanted to be pleasing to each other, you know, in that regard. So that was an experience, you know, that was for me at that time. That was different. I had never experienced that,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, I think that the way that I navigate with people who have different sexual interests depends on the relationship. Like I think that there are not too many times that I deal with people super casually, but I have had a lot of relationships that were not long term or long lasting in that way, just because I travel a lot or I might be in a country for just like a week or something like that. And when I, you know, navigate the world in that way and I come across someone and we connect on a sexual level, nothing is long term. Um, but it doesn't mean that we're not intimate. So I think that it really just depends on the nature of what the person's intentions are. I think I recently came in contact with someone who I didn't want to have penetrative sex with, and when I was in a space with him where, you know, sex was, I guess, assumed, I just put up a boundary and said I didn't want it to happen. And that's just what that was. Like, I just let them know what my intentions are.
Yeah,
And I think that the thing about intentions is if you have these intentions of wanting to do something, the person who doesn't want to do it trumps who wants to do it, because it's going to severely affect the person who doesn't want to, and it's just going to maybe upset the person who does.
right.
So I just put up a boundary personally. That's how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last question from Chance was, oh, there he goes with more. Let me say what Steven said. So Steven asks, Could I give my opinion on polyamory, pansexuality, and the importance of honesty and the impacts of possessiveness within a relationship? Ooh, great question.
Possessiveness, yeah.
Let me see, the importance of honesty and the impacts of possessiveness. So the importance of honesty, it is going to dictate whether the relationship stands or crumbles, period. So even if you are getting away with the fact that you are being dishonest, those types of things are very intuitive to other people. People kind of always know when they are lied to, and if they don't know right off the back, over time they feel it. I think it's like very energetic. So it's very important for the relationship, if you want it to last, to be upfront. If you are in a polyamorous relationship, I mean, that's just a given. I feel like any relationship that you have, it's a given that you're going to be honest. I think that when it comes to polyamory, people are always trying to figure out like how it works, right? Like, wait, so if you're now with like two people, like it's not brain surgery or rocket science. Like literally the same structure you are with one person. That's just
Okay.
something that you do with someone else. So you speak to this person in the same way, you update with them in the same way, you have methods and modes of communication that you guys have discussed, like what's your communication style, how frequently do you guys want to talk, how much do you guys go on dates, where do you guys go, y'all on vacation now, yeah, all the things you do with one person, you just do with more than one person, but it doesn't look any different from the way a healthy monogamous relationship is supposed to look like. So when you think about possessiveness, that is something that's a negative
Right.
monogamous trait. I mean, you don't even have to be poly in order to experience possessiveness, and you don't even have to think that possessiveness will affect your poly relationship, because anyone healthy enough is going to speak about things that make them feel insecure. You don't have to be an insecure person to want to be possessive. You don't have to be an insecure person to feel jealousy. You don't have to be an insecure person to have insecure energy or insecure feelings. So it really just depends on you letting your partner know what's triggering you, what's not triggering you, what things they can kind of, sift through and vibe with, and what things are going to completely turn them off. Those are all just conversations, but those conversations, back again, have to be honest, because if you're not speaking about how you truly feel about something that's happening, you're not only bottling up all the emotion that you really should be expressing, but you are now going to use all of that energy to react to the person you're in a relationship with, which is going to make it crumble. It's not going to keep something bound together, really. So I would say polyamory is amazing, but it's just another form of a relationship, and people try to do weird things in negative ways the same way they do in monogamous relationships, and they call it poly, and I really dislike that, because people try to make it more than what it is so that they can continue to inflict their idea of ego and superiority and pride onto another person. I'm really against that. Anytime someone speaks about really wanting to, be, separate from monogamy, or maybe practice an open side of monogamy, but they are completely and totally jealous when you tell them that you had a past relationship, it's like, okay, sir, you're not ready for this. Um, but yeah, I would say that those are kind of like the long and shorts of my opinions when it comes to all those things.
No doubt.
But let me see.
As always, breaking it down, making it plain, sharing a point of view.
Digestible.
That's all. There you go. That's
Um, Chance also said, for you both, what about your best sexual, what about your best sexual relationship made it so?
hmm. I probably go back to again um, that level of trust and funness and really being comfortable. Um, And for me, again, someone who likes to please, really tapping into, again, the sensuality, those senses, have always been to me like, that's what I would want to be intimately sexual with someone. You know, that sense of touch, the taste, the feel, the hearing, you know, those things. And really get a feeling that, again, it was the experience. You know, we really shared with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, walking away, you know, having that kind of sense. We connected, you know, you tapped into someone else's, with someone else's energy, and like being conscious of that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I've had a few. And I always think about it not, yes, they were sexual relationships, but because I have always thought about relationships as something that was long lasting, for me, I've always honed in on it being more true for me to have had sexual relations. So I would say that I have had several amazing sexual relations that are all like 5 star. And I think that in one instance, it was very spontaneous. I'm a very spontaneous person, but I am a sensual erotic person, which means that everything about my senses has to feel right, including my ambiance and environment.
Okay.
So for that, it was very spontaneous, but we went into a private space where there was no one around and I felt safe enough to just like express myself and without any inhibitions. And that kind of helped with it feeling like a great sexual experience. Another time, I started off with a conversation about my sexuality, just talking about like my queerness, for example, and getting into the things that I like, starting with like the people that I like or the genders that I like. And then it led to us discussing much more about me. And after I expressed all the things that I liked, we just did all the things that I liked. And that was amazing. I would say another time was a threesome that I had. And I think what I love about threesomes is that they have a certain chemistry to them. And there's like a way to make it work, especially if you are a hetero, if you are engaging like a heteronormative coupling, for example. So for me, when I do have relations like that, it's very, very, very important for the woman and I to have a camaraderie and a connection and an understanding separate from the man. And I think that when it came to those relationships when it came to those type of relations, those are the type of relationships that I have had. Very close, connective, congruent relationships with the women where we were on an understanding, and because we understood each other, there was a lot of focus and effort and emphasis going on between us, and the man benefited from our relationship and our closeness. So I would say those are kind of like the instances in which those were like the best experiences for me.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you mentioned, because I would mirror the exact same thing in the sense that in that situation in trying a threesome or foursome, the level of closeness or connection to either for me the other male that was in the foursome, so to speak. So there's a acknowledgement of him and I in that experience, and then also for her, the other person being brought in, the other woman, there was a level of like you said, a camaraderie or clarity there, that worked for them in that context in terms of that threesome. Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
Hmm. What would you express that acknowledgement to be? Because I actually never spoken to a man who has been in a foursome like that, that included another man, where they talked about like that understanding of whatever the dynamics is about to be or whatever was going to go
Mm.
down. So how would you describe that? That's very interesting.
In that situation, it was really one where this other brother and I, we've probably been friends for, you know, I don't know, 20, 30 years. So there's, again, a long kind of history there. But the conversation was really about, okay, um, it'll be cool, at least from where I'm coming from, that in this relations right here, um, if we change partners, like that's cool. So not a sense of, like just two couples together, that kind of thing, I guess was articulated and was understood. So in the course of the experience, when that did happen, it was very natural. It was comfortable. It wasn't awkward or anything. And I think I think that reflected with like having that little initial conversation,
Yeah.
And being cool with that.
Yeah. Discussion of boundaries.
Yeah, real,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments. So Stephen said he agrees. For me, the easiest way to recognize whether or not you can grow with someone is by identifying reciprocity and mutualism within the relationship. And if your partners aren't willing to offer you the same level of vulnerability, honesty, communication, and trust, then you know that it's a draining relationship and that works both ways. I agree. Energy vampires are a real thing across all connections, for sure.
Yeah.
And Empress Lioness says, how do you feel about waiting a few months before the intimacy, even if you know the person and you have been intimate in the past?
I think that would be very much a reflection of being, the reality of the nature of the interaction then. So just because there had been that connection in the past, if this is what we're dealing with presently, if there's a particular sense of vibe or energy that's, manifesting now, could be as simple as, I'm trying to connect with you maybe in some different ways. And I kind of know the connection from the past, so that's one thing. I want to explore more, that kind of thing. So I could see that being very much, a natural kind of thing or a very comfortable thing.
Yeah, I personally have grown out of being sexually attracted to people who I've spoken to in the past. And so even most recently, like literally in February, I ended up spending the night and spending some time with a friend of mine who I did used to see as a lover of mine in South Korea when I was living there. And I had no intention on doing anything sexual with this person. I didn't discuss it ahead of time because I didn't feel like it was needed. I felt like if it did come up, there was enough of the closeness and understanding in our relationship where we could just talk about it right then and there. And that's really what we did. I just said, I'm not interested in doing anything sexual. And that's just what it was. But I think it goes back to the question that Chance asked about how do you navigate when a sexual partner has other sexual interests? Like, I just put up that boundary. I just say exactly what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And I'm expecting those things to be respected. I usually am always, respected in those instances. I've never had someone disrespect me in those ways, thankfully. And so, yeah, I think I usually connect with really understanding people, and whatever I say, that's just, what it is. And if they want to try something and we're on that level, that's what we do. And if not, that's what we don't do. But I think that just because I was sexual with someone in the past, it does not guarantee anything in the future. And I know that some people might have an idea that not not necessarily they're entitled, because some people don't really have the issue of entitlement. They just might still be attracted to you or still might want to have something with you. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative, but
A level of
I think
comfort, maybe.
that
Yeah. A level of comfort, or just
yeah,
that's familiar, right?
yeah,
That,
because there is this one person also who I was sending around this link to get BDSM quiz results from different people because I wanted to know people's kinks and I wanted to understand them, sexually, and I wanted to just do much more, nerd investigation about it. And so when I asked him that, he responded with like a sexual. He had a sexual response, and I was thinking in my mind, I'm not even intending on anything sexual with this person, but I didn't take it negatively as if he was trying to impose on me. I was just like, yeah, me and this person had something sexual in the past. I asked him a question pertaining to his sexuality. It's natural that he might think in a sexual way, but it doesn't have to be a problem that I'm not interested sexually anymore. I
sure.
just mentioned that. Let me see. Any recommendations for healthy sexual dynamics? Um, Chance said he likes The Ethical Slut. I'm guessing that's a book, um, which I've never heard of, but any recommendations for healthy sexual dynamics?
I don't have any. I don't have any, but maybe you do.
Mm. Um,
If you talk in terms of books or in terms of just sharing your story, sharing your journey, I mean,
right. I don't even know. I would say healthy sexual dynamics, um, always practice using your voice.
mm,
It's very hard. A lot of times it can be very hard for women, I know specifically, but always practice using your voice because the more you practice using it, the more it comes second nature, the more comfortable you get, and practice it in ways outside of the bedroom. Because I think that if you are able to tell someone, hey, can you give me a glass of water? Or, hey, do you mind scooting over so I can get up and go to the bathroom? Or, hey, do you mind passing me that over there? Some people don't like to bother others or say something to someone that might make them uncomfortable, although they're sitting in their discomfort. It's like they're sitting in something that feels terrible, but they're afraid to inflict anything of that sort on someone else, even though it's probably not going to be a problem anyway. It's probably a projection coming from their side. So I would say one of the main things that I would suggest in terms of a healthy sexual dynamic is to practice using your voice, because then you get less in your head about what it is that you want to change and what it is that you want to stop for your own comfort, and you get more into your body and you become more present and you become more aware of how you feel and why you feel it, and you don't feel bad for why you feel it. You just are able to express it, and I feel like that's like the beginning, you know, those like first lines of communication with other people are kind of like the beginning of that.
mm, as always, dropping more jewels now.
Period.
Dropping more jewels. My head's exploding. My crown is coming off.
Okay, so there are a few more. We're gonna answer these last questions and then we'll say bye. So Steven said, in all the relationships I've had, sexual, romantic, platonic, intimate, business, etc., I've come to understand the way people communicate with you and the way I communicate to others is a series of pre-existing patterns. So for example, if I ask someone if they'll cheat and they say no, but they've cheated before, then it's an obvious lie. The important the important this becomes recognizing the conditions under which someone will behave in a certain way, not to assume that the possibility can or can't exist, because people are capable of causing harm even if malice isn't their intent.
I think we touched on that earlier in this notion of you have to be in your true self willing to quote unquote risk.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to be vulnerable, and no matter what happens in the end, the experience or where the experience takes you, you're not gonna die, you're not gonna go away, you're not gonna cease to exist if the result is maybe not as pleasant or as positive as you would like it to be, but the experience is still worth it, it's still worthy of the experience.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So let's see. I think the last question I want to answer is Empress Linus. I'm not sure what this means. I read it ahead of time. So it says, what does it mean when a woman constantly thinks she's having a specific guy's baby? Could it be the guy's intentions, or might it be a divine guidance? I don't understand the question. If you would like to rephrase, Empress, personally, unless Mark, you understand the question, and then please, by all means, answer.
um, these days, to connect to make a life, there's probably got to be some element that's beyond just the two of you.
Mm.
But at the same time, though, you said intentions earlier. Like, people need to be clear about their intentions. And if you're going to make, let's say, quote unquote, a pattern of the same choices over and over again, obviously, you know, if you having sex without using any kind of contraception um, as a choice, I don't necessarily think that's necessarily divine. I think that's more more two people making some choices there, whether
Yeah.
they're
She
conscious or not.
said, what if the pregnancy tests are all negative, but in spirit, the woman feels pregnant, and even after long periods of not having sex?
Ah, yeah, I couldn't explain that. What that might mean, what that would symbolize. Yeah,
Yeah, I have no idea. I definitely haven't had anything like that happen to me before, so I wouldn't be able to speak from experience. And then it's very particular, I think. So I don't know if I've ever met anyone who's that has happened to. So it's interesting to hear about. But but yes, don't know. Don't know about that one.
yeah. Hey, put it this way, maybe you can bounce that little thread off of some of the other people in your network and your resource. Say, hey, have you ever heard of an experience, you know, maybe with a client or a friend or you know, like this? And who knows? Maybe an answer or a thought or reaction will come back to you that you can say, you know what? I'll bring that response or answer, you know, back to my live next time.
She said an older woman said that their hormones are ready and they may act out that way. Interesting.
Mm. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe it's just like another form of baby fever, but
Mm.
just with one particular partner as opposed to more than one.
Right, right. Yeah. Maybe it's trying to manifest something, right?
Maybe.
Trying to speak it into existence, or not speak it, but a sexual relationship. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. I think it's time that we wrap up. Do you have any closing words, things to say, things coming up, anything you want the people to know? And then, of course, I'll wrap up as well.
Well, first of all, Yana, just thank you for just the honor of being on your platform. You know, as I said from the get-go, mad respect for you as an artist, for you being a creator, but more importantly, your consciousness that you're bringing, again, to this community. So that's really, really appreciated. I want to keep supporting you. So, you know, I'm gonna make that my business going forward.
Yay.
Um, you know, hopefully, you know, you got a little something on the last Cash App or whatever
I did. Thank
to
you.
say, you know, keep making this art, you know, that kind of thing. And for, you know, the folks on this kind of, you know, who've been with us tonight, um, hey, try to create these conversations with others, you know, because I think in this day and age, you know, it's so easy not to. You know, folks can get caught up in so much other stuff and just not really just speaking, just sharing, just talking to one another about these issues, you know, about these topics. You know, I just think it can be as revolutionary as us, you know, protesting what they're trying to do at the Supreme Court or
Mm,
all the kind of things that are going on. This can be revolutionary in our community, just having these kind of conversations and or making the space for others to have the conversations, you know. So um,
mm-hmm.
I'll leave with that, you know, particularly again, grateful as a brother to sister what you do. And love you and appreciate you.
Give thanks. Love you too. I'm very happy that you joined me. I really like the fact that I had a first male perspective on sex talk for this series, especially one coming from an older Black man. Like it really means a lot to provide space and to also let people of my audience know that like I'm open to hearing all types of experiences and all types of mindfulness when it comes to sexuality, no matter who you are. Just because anything that you are experiencing in that realm of your life is going to be helpful for someone else. And, you know, that's going to help to build a community that we all are looking for and that we all crave to be a part of. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for having the call ahead of time and dropping amazing gems and really saying certain things that are very insightful for me to think about and ponder on. I really appreciate that. And I want to encourage everyone who has loved the conversation that this conversation series was created in order to promote Sacred Screening and Sex Talk, which is my online event coming up next Thursday. It's going to be screening my film on my sexuality entitled Sacred Energy Exchange, a personal story on polyandry, kink, and masturbation. My short film is going to be showcased, and then we will have Femme du Jour, who is a sensuality advocate and artist, be the guest speaker. And we will have an audience talk back, kind of like what we're doing right now with answering questions, and a Q&A with me as the director. So if you are interested in more conversations like this, you want to know more information, you want more resources, I'm going to be giving a lot of those gems, a lot of those links, and a lot of things that you can use to self-identify things about your sexuality at that event. The links are in my bio. I have people buying tickets all day today. So definitely jump on that and grab some. And we will be back with another sex talk, maybe before or after the event, but this series will definitely continue. So stay tuned.
Beautiful. Be well.
You as well. Have a beautiful night, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, ciao. Bye.
Peace.